Fox Business Alert shares of SpaceX down 5.7% following a report from The Information this morning that SpaceX is planning to build at least one new large-scale data center in Texas. The expansion would reportedly boost its AI computing capacity beyond its two existing data centers that are already in the Memphis area. SpaceX right now at $116. Remember, it was priced at $135. Jumped exponentially right after the IPO. It comes as SpaceX will announce its first earnings report on August 4th, followed by a major share lockup expiration on August 6th. Despite snapping a 7-day losing streak yesterday, the stock is still down 27% since that record IPO. But the work, of course, doesn't stop, especially for Elon, who powers through thick and thin. SpaceX launched its Falcon 9 rocket last night out of Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, and hitching a ride was Northrop Grumman's first-of-its-kind mission robotics vehicle. This is a specific robotic spacecraft that's designed to extend the lives of multiple satellites currently in orbit. How are they doing that? Let's get to Connor Hansen, live at Northrop Grumman's Space Systems facility in Sterling, Virginia, where I'm dying to see a closer look at the replica, I guess, of the service robot, and tell us exactly what it can do.
Hi, Liz. Well, right behind me, you see a replica of one of the jetpacks this robot will carry. Right now, it's towing 3 of them into orbit to service these satellites and hopefully keep them up there for several more years. Now, Northrop Grumman has been working on this mission robotics vehicle for years now. It was launched yesterday, as you mentioned, on a SpaceX rocket from Florida. It has state-of-the-art robot arms developed by DARPA. Those will be able to grab onto satellites that are near the end of their lives and attach one of those jetpacks. They're about the size of a washing machine that will keep the satellite in orbit for around 5 to 8 more years. I mean, as this technology develops, there's only just more and more capabilities you can think of that these robotic arms can do in space, right?
Yeah, these robotic arms and the robot itself will be the most advanced capability in space, the most advanced robotics in space.
Now, they will also be able to add new cameras or processing power to existing satellites in the future. The robot will be controlled remotely from Earth, but will be able to use AI to learn to work on its own.
We have sent this up with advanced processing and AI ready so that we can upload new automation and the more advanced recognition and AI algorithms to help support the kinds of operations that we will perform very, very, very far from the Earth.
And at the end of the day, these will make satellites more cost-effective and reliable for things like Wi-Fi, but maybe most importantly, keeping the U.S. ahead of the curve.
We will be in the lead position as a country for the capability and the future possibilities we have in space robotics.
And in the not-so-distant future, Liz, they're hoping these robots can even help build larger items in space that need to be launched in several different pieces. Liz?
I would imagine, too, that now you don't really have to send, at least in some cases, astronauts out on spacewalks to fix these things, if they ever did that anyway. But this is fascinating. They must be excited at Northrop Grumman.
They sure are. It was a big celebration watching that launch, Liz.
Connor, thank you very much. Connor Hansen. While SpaceX investors have about a couple of weeks to go before SpaceX's first earnings report, Elon Musk's other company, Tesla, is set to report numbers after the bell. We're about 19 minutes away from that closing bell. Joining me now in a Fox Business exclusive, Gerber Kawasaki President and CEO Ross Gerber. He owns both SpaceX and Tesla, and I'm dying to know what the likelihood is after the bell that maybe on the conference call, Elon Musk will either talk about or be asked tonight whether he will merge Tesla into SpaceX. What do you think is the possibility there?
I think there's a high possibility he's going to talk about it for sure as we move into this earnings report and sort of this idea that now there's 2 earnings calls that Elon does every earnings season. That alone is unique among business CEOs in America. So, you know, I think that investors really want to know, and as we've seen pressure on both stocks recently, you know, you really have to wonder, you know, how much synergy is there between these 2 companies? And if there is so much synergy, why have they not merged already? So, you know, I think it gives investors some level of confusion as well when they're making an investment, if they want to invest in these companies choose like which one's the better one, right? So, or do I buy both? And so, it's time to sort of like end all this confusion and make it very easy for investors to have a binary choice, like I want to invest in Elon or I don't.
What would be the benefit, or I suppose the disadvantage, of putting SpaceX and Tesla in the same company? I mean, SpaceX already owns XAI and, of course,
right.
Starlink, but does Tesla work into that configuration?
Well, it does, in that XAI is powering the brains behind Grok, which is now being integrated into the Tesla operating system for the vehicles, as well as their desire to have XAI manage the brains for their Optimus robots. So it would seem that Tesla would be materially disadvantaged from a valuation perspective as they develop these technologies if they don't actually own the brains to them. So for some weird, crazy reason, XAI went to SpaceX when it really should have been a part of Tesla. And so this is where these conflicts, start, whether it was like moving GPUs that should have been gone to Tesla that went to XAI, which is now owned by SpaceX, and running operating systems on a other companies, system that should be run on Teslas. And these are the conflicts that need to be resolved and why this merger needs to happen. So I think it's much more important for Tesla that it merges with SpaceX than it is for SpaceX to merge with Tesla.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I definitely see that point. But you own about $1 million worth of SpaceX, but we've talked about this. You got it when you had already invested in Twitter. So you're at a totally different cost basis. So right now, with SpaceX way off its post-IPO highs, give me a sense of how you feel about the investment, even though you're probably in the money. I mean, you made a lot of money here.
Yeah, right. I feel great because I own Twitter, which in my mind was worth about 75% less than what we had purchased it for originally. And so the fact that got rolled into XAI and now SpaceX was a huge win for me. So I'm up substantially on the position here, even at 115. So, that's a really nice outcome from the investment. It's more that I actually believe in SpaceX a lot more than I believe in Twitter. And not to mention, I think it's like really funny that SpaceX owns Twitter. I mean, it's kind of crazy, right?
Well, we also have to look ahead. August 6th, there's sort of this first stage of the lockup expiration where some investors will be able to sell up to 20% of their holdings. There have got to be a lot of eager investors. I'm thinking employees who've been waiting for a payday. They got equity instead of an actual salary in some cases. So what do you think is going to happen there? Do you see a further sell-off in the stock? Because right now at $115, that's a new post-IPO low.
Right. So, stocks are still supply and demand based. So right now you have the least amount of supply of SpaceX stock. And at the IPO, you had the most amount of demand, right? And it drove the price up to 200.
Yeah, but that's
and as
totally
time has gone on,
Yeah.
Right. It's like switched, right? So now we're getting into a stage where a lot more supply is going to come on basically throughout the next 6 months. A tremendous amount of liquidity will be added. And we work with SpaceX clients at my firm. And I can tell you what we're advising them is to sell part of their stock to create a legacy for their families and financial security that many of them have waited 5 to 10 years for, but they're going to hold a lot of their stock too. So I don't think SpaceX employees are going to be like wholesale sellers, but I think many of them, and what we're advising them to do is to solidify their financial position for life and hold the rest, And so there's a lot of sellers out there that are coming to the market. And not to mention, a lot of people wanted to get into SpaceX stock pre-IPO, and they bought into these vehicles that these kind of shady guys have been selling that have a lot of fees involved. And those are all going to have to get liquidated so that they can pay off their investors and collect their fees. And there's a lot of money that was raised this way. So there is a lot of supply coming on. And I think it's great personally because I'm a long-term investor. And so I'd love to see SpaceX come down to a valuation that makes sense for my investors so I can buy the stock. So we have not taken a position at Gerber Kawasaki in SpaceX stock. My personal holdings of SpaceX is not represented in the firm. And this was only because I personally invested in Twitter.
Ross, to the Tesla piece of this, the car company. I mean, there's still a car company here, and the numbers are actually improving and recovering from, I guess, the weakness that we saw about a year and a half ago, certainly in Europe. More so, though, they're expanding their robotaxi service. In fact, they just announced they're expanding to Orlando and Tampa, Florida. That brings, I guess, the total of cities where these are operating to about 6. But they're still behind technologically when it comes to Waymo. And you've got to tell me your experience with them, because you have tested the full self-driving very often.
Right.
Is it there yet?
Well, it's funny because we just got the update, the newest update, like 2 nights ago. So I was just testing the newest version. And, you know, I'm running into the same problems, and Waymo has some of these issues too. It's around construction sites, and because I live in the Palisades, I'm in a constant state of like construction zones, you know, and like. And so human drivers struggle at this too, because these guys lay the cones in various ways in various places. There's so much construction. And so, you know, one of the things about full self-driving is it has to be able to operate no matter what the environment is and no matter how confusing. And they just have not been successful in these edge cases still. And this rollout with Tesla's robo-taxis isn't really, you know, an accurate description of, they might say 6 cities, but they're not really operating in these cities in any scale. Putting 1 car in Orlando is not operating a robo-taxi system. So Waymo is like so far ahead of Tesla at this point. It's kind of crazy. And Waymo's now competing head to head with Uber, not with Tesla.
Yeah.
So Uber's the one that really has the issue right now.
Ross, we'll all be watching the earnings after the bell, and the bell rings at about 11 minutes. So an exciting after the bell moment here. Tesla,
It will be.
Alphabet, IBM, ServiceNow, a lot of big names. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.